up, everybody? This is Case Study QB, and we are in the Progressive War Room with Kshama Sawant. I'm so happy and honored to have her on the channel. We're going to dig into some political strategy. We're going to talk about Working Strike Back. I'm going to ask Kshama about her time on the Seattle Council. We know that she's going to be, this is her last term, so let's get right to it. Kshama Sawant is a socialist Seattle councilwoman who helped put Fight for 15 in the political consciousness, and she also won it in Seattle. She is now working on organizing Working Strike Back, which is an independent rank and file campaign organizing in our workspace places and on the streets against the bosses and their political servant. Kshama, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me, Case.
All right, so let's get right to it. I want to ask you, what were some lessons learned as a city council woman over your tenure? You said that coming up soon is going to be 10 years. So that's a wealth of knowledge, and also your perspective as a socialist.
I think that's an important question because, unfortunately, for the American working class, the example that we have demonstrated, that is Socialist Alternative, my organization and I have demonstrated in this near decade that we've been in office, is all too rare. And that's the example of how a genuine working class representative, let alone socialist, should use their elected position for the betterment of the lives of working class people, and most importantly, to help organize and mobilize working class people, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. So one of the main lessons that we have learned, and in fact, it's not that it's something we knew going in as socialists, as Marxists, but it has been confirmed many times over through our experience that the first lesson is the Democratic Party is not on your side. The Seattle City Council has no Republicans really, in name anyway. We have 8 Democrats and 1 socialist. That's me. So that's 9 council members. And all the victories that we have won, and we have won unprecedented victories, really, as I said, unfortunately, it is virtually unparalleled. And though all those victories have been won despite the opposition of the Democratic politicians, including the self-described progressive politicians, including Latina women, women of color, Democrats, progressive Democrats. So that's, I think, lesson number 1, that the Democratic Party is not on your side, and you have to make a distinction between the rhetoric that they sometimes use, which is progressive, and in times of social movements like the George Floyd rebellion, you will see them saying things even radical sounding, but at the end of the day, they are a party of the billionaire class, and they don't stand with workers. So in order to win any meaningful victory, not something symbolic, but a meaningful victory, meaning like a $15 an hour minimum wage as we won, like the Amazon tax that we won, which taxes the wealthiest people in corporations like Amazon and Starbucks, in order to fund affordable housing for working people, in order to win the kinds of renters' rights that we have won, which genuinely improve the lives of renters in the context of an extremely landlord dominated market. To win anything meaningful like this, it will require working class movements to go up against some very, very powerful people. And if we don't do that, if we shy away from that battle, what it means is that not that there won't be a battle. There is class warfare. This is capitalism. It is class warfare at every moment. The only question is who's winning. So by building working class movements and going up against big business and their political representatives and winning victories, what we do is, for a few moments, we change that balance of power in favor of the working class. So we should not be ashamed of that. We should be proud of carrying out class struggle. So that's another lesson. It needs winning anything meaningful, as I said, needs you to go up against the Democratic Party. It needs you to go up against some really powerful people, and it needs class struggle methods. And that all of that also sort of, in other words, it means you need to have a fighting approach, meaning you don't win victories for working people, again, as I said, meaningful victories, by becoming a politician and then thinking you're going to have nice conversations and convince politicians in behind the scenes conversations to do the right thing. That is not how we won. We have won every victory by using our office to build social movements, build movements of ordinary people, union members. That is how we built the 15 Now movement. We built the Tax Amazon movement by mobilizing thousands of workers and then forcing the Democrats
Mm.
and the big business people that they represent to concede to our demands. And so, it's that kind of clash, the class struggle approach, that wins victories.
So you recognize the importance of having that outside strategy, that outside force, the working people petitioning, having to be outside the city council gates and letting your other fellow city council members, they see, hey, you said, for example, with the fight for 15, you're like, hey, we want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I'm sure I can imagine everybody on the council laughed at you. Shama, you're crazy. What you talking about raising $15 an hour? Now he said, oh, really? Okay, you're gonna laugh at me? Give me some time. Hold my beer, like they say. So a couple weeks later, you get that working people from outside at the gates. Now they're knocking on the door. Now they're outside with signs, and you go back to that same city council and you're saying, guys, we want to do $15 minimum wage. And they're like, now they're not laughing at you anymore. Now they're like, okay, there's something going on here, something serious. So that's what you're saying, that for the next person replacing you and going into Congress and council, and they want to do something big. For example, let's just say, I know that the worker strike back is going to be one of the initiatives, is like a 4-day work week. And let's say you wanted to do that in Seattle, and the next person coming in, you would basically say, this is the blueprint to get $4, 4 days work week in Seattle, correct?
Well, as you said correctly, Case, absolutely, we have a real, sort of a guidebook, as you said, blueprint, if you will, about what kind of strategy actually works if working people win an elected office for ourselves. What do we need that representative to do? We have demonstrated thoroughly the components of what that looks like. However, it's important to keep in mind that simply knowing this is not going to make it happen. If somebody, if some well-meaning person wants to run for office and let's say they even get elected, it's not just knowing this program or this methodology and having good intention that is going to make it work, because the reality is, Case, and it's really brutal, it has nothing to do with just being in Congress. Whether it's local government like city council or US Congress, it doesn't matter. These halls of power represent the interests of the wealthy, the capitalist class, the chamber of commerce. They are not there to do good for humanity, to do good for working people. So just by having good intentions and knowing how to do it is not, I mean, knowing how to do it is a big part of it. And most well-meaning progressives don't know how to do it. They genuinely believe that once they get elected, they have to get along with other elected officials, treat them as quote unquote, colleagues, think that they are colleagues, and getting along with them is the biggest priority, as AOC recently said, quite shamefully actually, that, but more honestly, that if she had done what the right wing, the far right did with the forcing the vote, that would have caused relational harm, is what she said. And what she meant by that was, essentially what she's saying is that she's going to prioritize her peaceful relationships with powerful politicians like Nancy Pelosi. She's not going to jeopardize that in any way. But as long as she is unwilling to do that, nothing is going to change for working people, and the squad will continue, unfortunately, regardless of their intentions, even betraying working people. So you have to flip that logic on its head. But the point I'm trying to get at, though, is that knowing that is also a far cry from where we are, unfortunately, for most elected representatives and people who are running for office. But even knowing the strategy that we are talking about is not going to be enough. How? Because in order to actually do what we did, not just talk about it but do it, it requires, as I said before, for you to become public enemy number one to the Chamber of Commerce, to big business, to billionaires like Jeff Bezos, and all the Democrats in the city. That is how it will work. There's no other way of that happening. And if you're going to do that, then you're not going to be able to succeed if you're on your own. So the reason our office has experienced such spectacular success is because of two reasons. One is that I am not alone. I am a member of Socialist Alternative, which is a Marxist organization, a fighting organization, an organization that is democratically run, where we have discussion and debate internally to make sure that our members have a say in the political approach we take. And then secondly, because Socialist Alternative itself is rooted in the wider working class. Our own members are working people, union members. They are rooted in the community. And so by virtue of that, we are able to mobilize the wider section of the working class. And so unless you have your own political organization and that is rooted in the wider working class and understands that the working class has to be mobilized into action, you're not going to win. So in other words, really, one of the most urgent needs of the hour is a new party for the working class. And that's why, not coincidentally, that is one of the demands of Workers Strike Back, that the working class needs a new party.
So I just want to point this out for everyone listening that, at the national level, you hear about the Koch brothers, you hear about a lot of like oil barons, and now a lot of libertarian tech people like Peter Thiel, for example. And these are people that fund even APAC. These are people that fund to try to take down progressives at the national level. But here's Kshama talking about at the local level, at the Seattle councilwoman level, there's still these type of people. And we know, of course, about Amazon, who did 2 recalls against Kshama and spent millions of dollars. But there's also other forces that will come to a council person and in those kind of ways try to influence them in one way or the other. All right.
Okay, and if you don't mind, just
Please.
just to bring this whole idea to life, for people who are thinking, well, maybe things are not so bad at the local level. And I endlessly hear people saying, oh, the success of Socialist Alternative in Seattle shows that we need to run candidates at local level, not bother with presidential or congressional. I don't agree with that. Of course, there is truth to the fact that campaigns at a local level are less resource intensive, to some degree. So it may make strategic sense to do that for the working class to run local campaigns. But fundamentally, they are no different. Fundamentally, if you're going to fight for working people, you are going to go up against the same kind of powerful forces. It just depends on who they are. I mean, we happen to be in Seattle, and so we directly came into the crosshairs of big corporations like Amazon and Starbucks, of billionaires like Howard Schultz and Jeff Bezos, and really the entire corporate landlord lobby, because we've won so many renters' rights victories by mobilizing and organizing renters. The corporate landlord lobby is absolutely influential. I mean, there was a campaign actually, that the recall attack against me in 2021, which we defeated. Some of the most prominent funders and backers of the recall attempt were big real estate corporations, for example, like Goodman Real Estate, which has properties all across North America and is it was in 2019 the biggest evictor in Seattle. This corporation has destroyed many lives. And to give you another story to bring this to life, as you said correctly, Case, at first when I got elected, and on the promise of $15 an hour, taxing big business and rent control, the Democratic establishment was, I think, partially stunned and also partially mocking us. In one newspaper, there was a quote from a Democrat, unnamed Democratic council member, who apparently said that me getting elected to city council and coming to city hall would be like a mountain lion in a grocery store. I mean, I have no idea what that means. Like, I've never seen a mountain lion in a grocery store, but the point being that they thought it was completely strange and maybe even hilarious. But that didn't stay for too long, because the moment we took office, they understood that we meant business, that we were dead serious about fighting for working people. It was not just rhetoric. I was not going to come into city hall and then just become part of the club, cozy club that goes to retreats with the Chamber of Commerce, but that we wanted to fight, and that we knew how to fight, that we were not amateur hour, but we had a real strategy. The moment they found that out, they were absolutely livid, and they went to battle as well. And in fact, one day, in a few weeks after I took office, two of the most powerful Democrats, corporate Democrats, they came into my office, sat me down, and pretty much said, I'm paraphrasing, they said that it's all well and good that you roused the rabble in your campaign, but now you're in City Hall and City Hall runs on our terms, and you're not going to win any minimum wage increase, let alone 15. See, that's how serious
Wow.
they are about representing the interests of the ruling class, of big business. They're going to be dogged, so we better be dogged too. You can't go there with rose tinted glasses and assume that they are going to come on your side. No, they will fight tooth and nail, so we have to fight tooth and nail. So we have to embrace the class struggle.
Awesome. I love all the details and how you went to this. I think this is a perfect workshop for anyone running for office at the local level to understand what you're up against. And I hope this is going to show you that you need to have that fighting spirit, and you have to have a guard up for when you get a sit down and a talk like that, to let them know that no, we're going to get the workers, people in the streets, and we're going to do things differently. Because I can imagine that that's how people with good minded, good intentions go in and get co-opted by the system. The system is harsh, but and it's there for a reason, and we have to try to fight that. And I'm sure we're going to talk about worker strike back, which is one of the ways to fight the system. So I want to go on, and I want to ask you, there's a big conflict between them enter and them exit. And what I mean conflict, like there's a little fight back between the community as far as which strategy to use. But I saw that, I want to ask you the question of how do you balance having solidarity with Democrats who were elected on the council, because I know you have to get things passed on the council and you have to collaborate with people on the council, and also people outside, Democrats outside of on the council, meaning Democratic clubs. So for example, the King County Young Democrats supported you 3 years ago. So to get support from actual Democrats, I want to ask you, Kshama, how do you balance the two?
Yes, so the reality is that uh, for the most part, the majority of voters who voted for us in these four elections probably identify as Democrats or maybe independents, but I don't think that the majority of them identify as socialists. So the strategy we used was, in order to reach out to rank and file people who may be Democratic Party supporters, is we, on the one hand, we didn't hide what our politics are. I didn't from day one I made it very clear I'm a socialist, I'm a member of Socialist Alternative, and this is what I believe. But at the same time, what we said is that if you don't have to agree with me about socialism, but if you agree that workers are grossly underpaid, if you agree that the inequality in our society is criminal and the bosses are making away with all this money while hardworking people, even the hardest working people are left actually at that time, below the poverty line, because the $50 minimum wage, by the way, lifted 100,000 Seattle workers above the poverty line, which was the bare minimum. Obviously, now it is nowhere close to enough because the cost of living has become unprecedented. But the point is, what we said was, if you agree with us on these concrete demands, like $15 an hour, like taxing big businesses like Amazon to fund affordable housing, if you agree that the rent is too damn high and we need rent control and we need to strengthen renters' right with a Bill of Rights, then this campaign is your campaign. Come fight alongside us. Don't just vote for us. Come fight alongside us. Let's win this, and let's begin addressing the inequality in our city. So on that basis, we build powerful solidarity among the working class in Seattle, on the basis of concrete demands, and at the same time, really also pushing our points. We were never coy about stating our opinions on why it doesn't work to support the Democratic Party. Um, but we had a different approach to Democratic Party politicians. So I would make a real distinction between ordinary people, rank and file people, workers who may vote Democrat, and Democratic Party politicians, let alone the Democratic Party apparatus. So when I'm an elected representative, my loyalty has to unambiguously be with the working people and the oppressed that I claim to represent. So my loyalty to them comes first. And to the extent that any progressive Democrat is willing to stand with us maybe even in a rare instance fight with us, then absolutely we welcome that, and we want to do that together. And so on a few occasions there were, especially one left leaning politician in in Seattle, who's not on the council anymore, with whom we work together in order to win things for renters, and also for certain resolutions for environmental rights, against climate change. But I think the bottom line has to be not cooperation with the Democrats, but building the strength of working people. And to the extent that any Democrat is willing to support us, absolutely we welcome that. I have to say, unfortunately, not that it does not happen, but that's always the exception to the rule. So I don't think our starting point should be, oh, how do we cooperate with the good Democrats? No, the starting point is, how can I be loyal to working people, and how can I mobilize their strength in order to win victories?
Awesome, awesome. So definitely one of the things I got from you, and I want to put emphasis on the audience, is kind of organize around specific policies instead of organizing along, like saying I just want socialists to
Yeah, I
support
mean,
me.
if you just, and the thing is, honestly, actually, a lot of Democrats, one of the strategies that Democratic politicians use, where they end up selling out working people, is that virtually never want to commit to concrete demands, because the moment you commit to a concrete demand, it becomes a campaign promise, and you got to
Yeah.
fulfill it. So
Yep.
they never want to be held to anything, so they're very slippery in their language. So if you
Yeah.
notice in their election campaigns, they deliberately will not come out and say specifically what they're fighting for. They'll just generally say, oh yes, I agree, we need to address inequality, we need to address the racism in the police department. They'll say vague, abstract things like that. But when it comes to actually fighting for something, not neither will they fight around something concrete, nor will they actually take on the battle that they need to take on, because ultimately, to win any of these things, it will require them to not have a cozy relationship with some people at the top, corporate types. And if you don't want your daily life as an elected representative to be fraught with battle, then you're not going to do it. And that's what it comes down to. Also, individuals, unfortunately, even like AOC and the squad, what has happened is that they may have, some of them might have come to office with genuine intentions, but when they go there, they recognize that the whole system there, and a whole capitalist system as a whole, of course, but especially, in the halls of government, is set up to beat you down and crush you if you are going to stand up for working people. You can't, first of all, you can't do that on your own. And not that I'm giving an excuse to AOC. Even if you're on your own, you got to stand up to it. You got to be principled. You got to have a conscience and a spine. What I'm saying is that is the first requirement, but even that won't be enough. We need our own party.
100%. I agree with you 1,000% with on that. Thank you so much for that answer. So you know that Amazon right now is probably celebrating. They were getting ready to spend another million, 3 million, whatever it was, with on the last two recalls. There's He was looking through the couch for another couple million, and now he's like, "Oh, I can throw this in the furnace and heat my house now because Shama's not running again." So my question to you is there another? Do you know another socialist that's going to be running in your place, or another progressive leftist that's going to be running in your seat?
So, just first of all, on Amazon and Jeff Bezos, you're absolutely right. They have been livid at our presence on the council, because especially specifically because we have won victories. See, if we raised all these slogans and demands, but we were completely ineffective at winning anything, they wouldn't care. We would not be a threat. In fact, honestly, I think on second thoughts, they would probably care, and they would try to defeat us even if we raised those slogans. But they're especially angry at us because we have actually defeated them on concrete things, like winning the Amazon tax, for example. And at the same time, we have to see that the tech corporations are carrying out a massive attack now with the layoffs. Tens of thousands of workers are being laid off in the tech sector, and it
Yeah.
shows you how, it's a reminder of the falsehood in this statement. Like, so for example, when we were fighting for the Amazon tax, our opponents said, well, if big business said, if you tax big business, they'll cut jobs. Well, they never cut jobs because of taxes on big business. They cut jobs
Mm,
when then they want to put the burden of the systems crisis on ordinary people. So now that
yeah.
the economy has started experiencing real crisis, we saw the collapse of multiple banks. Alongside that, the tech sector is also having to reckon with the the easy money time that they were
Mhm.
spending all this money. But the thing is, it's not like the venture capitalists and the CEOs are paying the price for that. They're making working people pay the price for it by laying them off. So all of this is happening. And at this same time, we need working people to have our own elected representatives. Unfortunately, uh, I would say the candidates who have filed for this district so far
Mhm.
are, I don't hold out any hope
Mhm.
whatsoever. Some of them are outright corporate candidates, and some of them are, just they don't have any program at all. And they are
Oh
all,
man.
uh, I think, to a person, they are all just your run of the mill careerist candidates.
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. Okay. Let's get to, so being on my channel, I definitely got to get you to react to a couple clips. So we're going to do that with the last 17 minutes or so that we do have. So first, I don't know about you, Sharma. I've been optimistic. This is a DC rally, anti-war rally that happened this past weekend. I'm going to show, this is the Los Angeles school workers. It's been showing often on CNN. I also saw it on MSNBC, but this is one of the clips. And matter of fact,
All
let me
across
just
the U.S., the superintendent saying
play it.
whatever comes out of this agreement is
Look at
going to
that.
be
I want to
historic
pause it
in
right
the
there.
amount.
I wanted to just show everyone this view. That looks so beautiful. Go ahead, Shama. Looks like you want to say something.
No, I was just saying that I was hoping you would go back to that glimpse and hold it there, because
Yeah.
that is just absolutely moving. I mean, the
Yeah.
courage of these workers to stand up and fight back is amazing. And in fact, it sort of dovetails perfectly with the national movement that we have launched. As you were saying earlier, Case, we're not running for office again because we want to use the ideas that we have demonstrated so effectively in Seattle to be shared on a national level, with rank and file union members and workers nationwide. And so that's why it's not coincidental that workers strike back was on the ground with the tens of thousands of the teachers, the workers of the unionized Los Angeles Unified School District, who were there. They announced a 3-day strike. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, and the strike is going on, starting today through Thursday. And what's important to mention, we were talking about concrete demands right a minute ago. Well, these workers are united around bold demands. They're fighting for a 30% wage increase along with a $2 per hour raise for all workers, which would have obviously a bigger impact on the lowest paid workers, but would help all workers. And one of the unions is aiming for a 20% wage increase for teachers over 2 years. I mean, we know all of this is a long time coming. This is overdue raise for workers who have worked. So, I mean, these are teachers, they are educators, they are public school workers and staff who run our schools, who educate our children, and who really make our society work. And they are the ones who have been left behind. And in fact, it's important that the unions who are in this fight, they're pointing out that the school district has a record $4.9 billion reserve fund. So when management says, where's the money going to come from, well, that's where it's going to come from. And then
Yep.
on top of that, it needs to come from taxing the wealthiest people in the Los Angeles area.
100%.
But the
And
union says,
also
look,
we
they
have
understand and they
some other actions going on. Let me show this shit, this tab. And this is also going on in New York City. This is their marching on JP Morgan to demand an end to fossil fuel. So basically, I'm showing these different actions because, someone mentioned in the chat earlier about France. As we saw, they're trying to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64, While we here in America, I looked it up, we retire at 60, between 66 and 67, depending on when you were born. But 67. And I'm going to play a clip also coming soon about that. But I was jealous for a while of France. But now that I saw those actions that I showed previously, and that's America, that big wide shot was Los Angeles. So I'm getting more optimistic. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I really
Go
think
ahead.
it is. I mean, it's obviously we have to be sober and understand what we are up against. In fact, that also all of the examples you've been playing, actually, Case, the example of France and the fight for retire, people who in retirement, workers in retirement, and the fight against climate change. All of this is actually very much relevant to the movement that we have launched, Workers Strike Back. And the reason we have launched has everything to do with your, what you were saying about yourself in terms of whether we should feel optimistic or pessimistic. So I think it's both. On the one, I mean, not pessimistic, but optimistic and sober is what I would say. Pessimism doesn't exactly help us to build movements. But the point is that we should be optimistic, because there's a whole generation of tens of millions of people in the United States, and then tens of millions in Europe, and then many others on other continents, even in the neo-colonial countries like my home country, India, in Latin America, where young people are fed up with the status quo. Think of somebody who's 19 years old or 20 years old. All they have seen is crisis upon crisis. So it's not like we have to convince them that capitalism doesn't work for them. What they're looking for is a way to fight back. They're looking for a strategy that will actually succeed. And that is where I'm saying that while we have to be optimistic because of the new era we are in, where people want to fight, the sobering reality is that unfortunately the we if you think of the Democratic Party as some kind of savior, that hasn't been true. They have actually betrayed us on one thing after another. Look at the sellout of the railroad workers. Even the squad and progressive politicians like Pramila Jayapal sold out the railroad workers and broke their strike. I mean, it was a spectacular betrayal. And then even before that, we saw the complete failure of the Democratic Party to stand up for abortion rights. And we saw the Dobbs ruling, which was a historic defeat and a setback for the historic Roe v. Wade victory that was won by working people in the 1970s. And so all of this shows that what's missing is not the desire to fight back among the rank and file, but the strategy, the leadership to actually win something. And so that's where I feel Worker Strike Back comes in. And the reason we launched Worker Strike Back is because that kind of leadership, a fighting strategy to win, to unite the working class around fighting demands, concrete demands, and provide us an action, a program that has completely failed at the hands of the vast majority of the labor leadership. Also, it's not only the Democratic Party, it's also labor leadership, specifically their adherence to business unionism, which overall is an idea that you try to make peace with the bosses. You don't mobilize and organize your own members, union members, into action, protest action, let alone strike. And that has been a big, it has left a chasm in the labor movement, and it has, the labor movement has declined over the last decades. But you have a whole new generation looking to fight back. And so that's why we are trying to, Worker Strike Back is trying to reach out to rank and file people. And I should just quickly mention also that one of the big initiatives that we are working on through Socialist Alternative, which Worker Strike Back is supporting, is a union drive at KCVG, which is located in northern Kentucky. It is Amazon's largest air hub facility in the world. So this is of extreme strategic importance. And the workers there are showing phenomenal courage in going up against the bosses. I mean, they're under fierce attack. They are being fired for made up reasons. They are, the whole facility is flooded with managers that is doling out union, anti-union and union busting language. The corporation has hired one of the law firms that has decades long reputation for union busting. And so they're up against all of this, and the workers are organizing. Socialist Alternative is organizing alongside them. And of course, the Amazon Labor Union, they had a big rally on Saturday. But the reason I'm mentioning this is that 3 of those workers are going to be in Seattle on Saturday. And if anybody who's watching this is going to be on Seattle on Saturday at 12 noon, You should join us at the Amazon Spheres. We are going to be there in solidarity with the Amazon workers who are unionizing at KCVG.
Awesome. Thank you for plugging that. So everyone who's in that area, please go out there and support Kshama. Yeah, I do want to say that I saw how the Biden administration, when it was for the railroad strike, to break the railroad strike, he said he wanted to move with the legislation in like 3 days. He said, we need this. He told Nancy Pelosi, we need this as quickly as possible. They got it done in like 3 days. And then the recent bank bailout, they got that done like
In
that.
hours, yeah.
And now we see East Palestine is still waiting for help. You have the EPA is saying, oh, you guys could go back to your house and don't worry about the water's fine. And it's been months, and you see it out of the news cycle as well. It used to be the focus before the bank bailout. So it's definitely horrible. I want to play this video, and then I have that one last question I want to ask you about PCC, and then we're going to end the show as in our last 8 minutes. So let me bring this up. Boom. This has to do with what we were just talking about.
There are lots of other things to think about in Social Security. When we did it with Reagan, we extended the age of retirement. People are living longer. They're healthier. I'm 82. I'm still working. What we need to do is extend the age of retirement to reflect the longevity of the American people. That's there. And also the tax position of the Social Security. But I love what the senator said, and I think it's a really great idea, and it should be given full airing. And we need to move towards a privatized system.
Yeah, it's the first time, and he's got a bunch of both sides of the aisles. I've spoken to him a few times to use some kind of market-based mechanism to bolster Social Security.
So he's just basically talking about privatizing Social Security, which we know if in 2008, if Social Security was privatized, we would be in trouble because of that huge crash. And then he wants to increase again. We just increased it to 67. Like, what, you want people to retire at 80? Like, I don't understand what these people are doing. I don't know if you want to comment on this before I ask you that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an economist myself, and I know who this guy is.
Okay.
He's Arthur Laffer. He is a Reagan era economist. He was on the Economic Board of Economic Policy Advisors, or whatever it was called in the Reagan administration. So he's a known conservative economist, anti-worker, anti-union economist. And unfortunately, he's not the only one. In fact, the economic advisors of most Democratic presidents, all the way from Clinton to Biden, also have similar politics, including Larry Summers. And what they're saying is basically a recipe to further impoverish and punish already overburdened American working people. And that is why we have to, you have to understand that the Democrats and Republicans might have some differences among them, but the points on which they are united, that's the most dangerous for working people. I know somebody had a funny quote where they said that when they start saying bipartisan, the working people are screwed, because that's a bipartisan agenda. The desire to attack Social Security, the obstacles they will put in the path for any kind of Medicare for all, let alone socialized medicine, the resistance that they have established to increasing the minimum wage even by a minimal amount. All of this, it has bipartisan support. Democrats and Republicans are both dedicated to this anti-worker, anti-union agenda, and that's why we need a unified. We need to unify working people. We may not agree on everything, but if we agree that this whole status quo is not working for us, then we need to unite around a common program like the one we've brought up in Worker Strike Back, where, for example, we're fighting for a $25 an hour minimum wage, like you said, 4-day work week, good union jobs for all, Medicare for all, demands like that will absolutely unite even people who might have voted for Trump.
Definitely. So with this last question and our last 5 minutes, thank you so much again for coming on the show and for your time. I appreciate you. I want to ask you, so I was doing some research looking at, I didn't want to ask the same questions that other people ask you, and doing that research, I saw you at a rally with one of the early Worker Strike Back rallies, protesting PCC, which turns out to be like a grocery store, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a grocery store. But this is the thing, chat, for everybody who's like a socialist minded, very leftist minded, I always thought that we just need 80% of companies just needs to be co-ops, and where we have democracy in the workplace where the employees have power. And this is what Richard Wolff taught me watching him. But PCC is a co-op, but they have a union. So I'm like, I'm baffled. Why would a co-op need a union? So can you tell us about why? And they were talking about how they didn't have enough money, or they lost their the money during COVID.
Hazard pay, yeah.
Their hazard pay. Thank you so much. They lost their hazard pay, and they had to rally for that, and they had to go to their unions for that. And can you tell us about that situation?
Yeah, in fact, the PCC workers are unionized with UFCW 3000. It's unfortunate that the union leadership actually didn't put up a fight at all against the repeal of the pandemic hazard pay. The hazard pay was something that the workers had won. It was hard won. It's not like it was just granted out of the beneficence of the Democratic Party. The workers won that, and my office and Socialist Alternative strongly supported it. But then the repeal of the hazard pay, $4 an hour, it was a lifeline for these workers because they are underpaid to begin with. That hazard pay was actually shamefully repealed by a woman named Teresa Mosqueda, who's a self-described labor Democrat. It is just shameful. This is why I'm emphasizing so much that as long as there is this deep link between labor leadership and the Democratic Party, it's a non-starter. That's why we need rank and file militancy that will advocate for independent politics. But anyway, going back to the question of co-ops, yeah, this is a co-op. Now, it's not a worker-owned co-op, so that's one difference. But at the same time, it's also a reminder that we cannot reform our way out of capitalism by establishing co-ops here and there. Capitalism is not going to disappear just by establishing co-ops. Instead, what is going to happen is that under capitalism, the co-ops that are established, even with some good intentions, then will end up getting enveloped into the overall agenda of capitalism. So just to tell you, the former CEO of PCC was actually a former executive at Kroger. So these are people who come with absolutely cutthroat corporate experience. They have decades of experience being anti-worker and anti-union. And I want to tell you, the current CEO, his name is Krishnan Srinivasan. We don't even know how much he makes because they don't reveal how much he makes, but I'm sure it's many times more than the workers. The workers are not able to afford their life here in Seattle. And this guy, he used to be a vice president of finance for Lyft Corporation. He was also the chief financial officer for Amazon India and Amazon Japan. So these are straight up corporate guys, top corporate guys who have been appointed to now carry out an anti-worker agenda inside this co-op. And so it's really important that the rank and file workers are fighting back. And I was really proud to be there alongside them. Speaker from Workers Strike Back was also there alongside them. And they're not only, they are obviously angry at the hazard pay, but what they're doing is very important, which is the rank and file are leading their own organizing effort leading up to the contract renewal, contract battle that is going to come up in a few months.
Wow. Thank you for letting us know, because I always thought that all we need is co-op. So let me ask you, is there a preferred co-op to have? So would you say, like, okay, because I just saw in the comments somebody said that's not a worker co-op, is a corporate co-op. So is there a system that you would like? What if you had a magic wand, what would you create for that store?
Well, first of all, I would say that what I believe we need cannot be created with a magic wand. That's the problem. A lot of people would agree with the vision that Socialist Alternative or I put forward, but what's difficult for them to stomach is the fact that it's not going to be easy to achieve. We are going to have to be fighting for this. We have to build almighty, powerful mass movements to win anything. But in terms of what we need, what is that vision? I would call that socialism. We need to end capitalism, globally, and we need to usher in what I would call socialism, a socialist economy. And what that basically means is an economy and society that is run by and for the vast majority of the working class, for the good of humanity, to raise everybody's standards of living, to build a sustainable planet. Obviously that is, the climate catastrophe is at our doorstep. So that's one of the first things that we need to address. But none of this is possible as long as the big corporations, the vast stores of wealth in our society, which is generated by hundreds of millions of people, billions of people going to work, is in the hands of a few powerful and wealthy people, of a few billionaire class. So that's capitalism. So we're not going to change this by good intentions. We have to take the big corporations into democratic public ownership of the working class, because as long as it is in the hands of the billionaire class, we will not be able to change society, because for the simple reason that you cannot control what you don't own. But in order to take what I would call the commanding heights of the economy into democratic public ownership of the working class, that will need mass movements. We will need to go up against some very powerful people. We will need absolutely courageous workers. We will need tens of millions of them. And we in the here and now, in this year, for example, we need to start with, as I said, building an organization like Workers Strike Back, building rank and file militancy among both unionized workers and workers who are not unionized. Most young workers in America are not unionized today. Also build a powerful strike at UPS, for example, and for them to win a strong contract. These are concrete things we need to take on in order to build towards that. We can't hear you, Case. It's okay. Yeah, I thank you so much, Case. I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye bye.